My parents demanded that I change the date of my wedding because of a trip to Australia with my golden brother and his family. I told them yes, but now they're crying because I got married without them 5 days ago. My girlfriend of 6 years and I got married in a small, intimate ceremony. Initially, it was only going to be with our families and a couple of very close friends. But unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, my family couldn't attend. To be more precise, my family could have attended, but for them, going on vacation to Australia with my brother and his family seemed like a higher priority. My wife and I have been together for 6 years and got engaged about 10 months ago. We hadn't formally invited anyone or sent out invitations until 4 weeks ago, but we knew when we wanted to get married and informed our families 8 months in advance so they could reserve the date. When the time for the wedding came, my parents assured me they'd keep it in mind. Honestly, I didn't expect them to do what they eventually did, but I guess I should have, considering I've always had a somewhat tense relationship with my parents. I grew up in a family where my brother was considered the prodigy, and I was just the troublesome one. My brother is 4 years older than me and has always been better at everything, whether it was his grades, sports, or other activities. Of course, I felt a bit overshadowed by him when I was younger, but I thought that feeling would eventually fade. It might have disappeared if my brother had been a less arrogant person, but he constantly seemed to provoke me on purpose. He would always mock me, bully me with his friends, and since I was a particularly small child, it was quite easy for him to do so. I always tried to complain to our parents, but they never believed me. To them, my brother was the perfect child, probably incapable of making mistakes. That went on for quite a while, and by the time I got to high school, I had so much resentment built up against my brother that I made an effort to cause trouble whenever I could. If I couldn't be as good as my brother, then I'd be remembered in other ways, right? Since my childhood, I had developed a bit of a rebellious attitude, and it only got worse as I grew up. By then, my brother already had a job, yet he couldn't stop trying to show off. One day, after I graduated from high school, he made a really sarcastic comment about me being a disappointment or something, and I just lost it. I'd been looking for a fight for a long time, and that day we finally clashed. That was almost 10 years ago, and since then, we haven't spoken. I'm pretty happy about that because, honestly, I think my life improved a lot after I stopped talking to him. I think I got rid of a lot of the anger I had toward him the day I hit him. I also got quite beaten up, but I was happy to have at least given him a well-deserved black eye. Of course, after that, my parents were very upset with me because they thought I had provoked him and started the fight on purpose. They were never willing to believe that it was always my brother who provoked me and tried to get me to fight him. Even that day, they didn't believe me. They were very cold towards me for the following weeks, and things only started to improve when I went off to college, probably because they were going to be alone after that and wanted to make amends with me before I left. But I never forgot how they treated me. Although I kept in touch, I simply couldn't forget how unfairly they treated me compared to my brother. The only reason I invited them to my wedding was that they were the only family I had. I'm not particularly close to any of my relatives, and my grandparents, unfortunately, are no longer with us. Despite our strained relationship, we had made an effort to stay in touch over the last 10 years. They also tried to get me to reconcile with my brother several times, but I don't think either of us was interested. He got married about 6 years ago and now has 2 kids. I wasn't invited to his wedding, and I didn't care at all. My parents even tried to get me to invite him to my wedding this time, but that definitely wasn't going to happen. I know he's still the same arrogant, unbearable brat as always because we have to see each other during holidays when we go back home, and his behavior hasn't changed in the slightest. The only difference is that we no longer acknowledge each other's existence. I'm also aware that my parents still have a soft spot for him, but I didn't expect them to just go on vacation with him and his family without even caring that I was getting married around the same time. I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure they did it on purpose because they knew that if it came down to it, our parents would definitely choose them over me. That's what they've done our entire lives. He probably wanted me to feel bad, and in a way, he succeeded because right now I feel absolutely horrible about all my decisions. Anyway, a couple of weeks before, just when we sent out the formal invitations, my parents visited me and told me they probably wouldn't be able to attend because just 3 days earlier, my brother had invited them to join him on his family vacation to Australia. It was a fully paid trip, a perk for my brother, who had really impressed one of his clients and wanted to take his whole family with him. So they couldn't postpone it because my brother had already taken the time off, and my parents expected me to postpone my wedding. Instead of asking them to decline the trip, they told me they were really excited and looking forward to spending time with their grandkids, hoping I would understand. I wanted to argue with them, but instead, I just smiled and said, "It's fine, I'll wait." They were puzzled and didn't even think I wasn't serious. They seemed satisfied with my response, so they left. I talked to my wife about it, and she was just as surprised because we'd always known that my brother was more important to them, but for them to blatantly brush me aside was just so disrespectful. Obviously, we had no intention of waiting or postponing our wedding, so we decided to go ahead with it, with or without them. So, 5 days ago, around the time we were supposed to get married, we went through with the wedding and posted about it that afternoon. This surprised my parents a lot because I had promised to wait, and I didn't. When they saw the photos, they started calling and texting me immediately, but I ignored them because it was my wedding day, and I didn't even bother to read the messages until the next day. The following morning, when I woke up, I read the messages they had sent me, and it was exactly what I expected. They told me they were very disappointed in me and didn't expect me to betray them in that way. I decided to contact them and talk about what had happened because I really had a lot to say to them, and I'm sure they had a lot to say to me as well. They didn't take long to answer my call, and as soon as they picked up, they started yelling at me. They said they'd never felt so insulted as they did the day before because everyone was surprised that I hadn't invited them to my wedding. Since I wasn't close to the rest of my family and was also a bit of an introvert, no one had expected to be invited to my wedding. But apparently, everyone believed my parents would be there without a doubt, and they were shocked to see the photos and not find my parents anywhere. So, the whole family had a lot of questions. It was typical of my parents to care more about what others thought than about what they'd put me through. Anyway, I decided to tell them what I thought and said that I had no intention of waiting for them to return from their vacation with my brother and his family, even if I had said so, because I knew arguing with them would be pointless. It's not like they were going to turn down the trip with their golden son and his family, even if it meant missing my wedding. I was already too busy, so I didn't have the energy to argue with them, which is why I promised to wait. In my opinion, I was completely justified in what I was doing and didn't owe them an explanation. I also mentioned everything that had happened in the past, how they never believed my brother was a horrible and arrogant person, and how they always treated me unfairly. Even now, they couldn't see that my brother had specifically chosen that moment to invite them on vacation because he knew it was more special for them if he could make my parents miss my wedding. That would be the biggest victory for him, and that's exactly what happened. So, my parents had shown me once again that my brother was more important to them than I was. Now they had no right to question my decisions because I was tired of them and wasn't going to be sidelined anymore. I was about to hang up, but my parents told me that apparently, my brother didn't know I was getting married around the same time. They said that if I had told them I wanted them to be at my wedding and that I wasn't willing to wait, they would have declined the trip and been with me instead. However, instead of being transparent with them, I decided to play mind games and now was acting like a victim in the situation. You can click on share and more to see if there is a part 2.